Today, Dane County Court heard the case to allow absentee voters to cast new ballots if their preferred candidate drops out. The judge will issue a decision in the case tomorrow by 4:30 p.m. Now, the latest guidance from the Wisconsin Elections Commission does not allow do-overs for voters who cast ballots for candidates who dropped out, like Sarah Rodriguez or Missy Hughes. 3 voters backed by the Democratic Party of Wisconsin filed the case against the Wisconsin Elections Commission to allow that right.
Ultimately, time is of the essence and the stakes are high. Unless this court acts, the plaintiffs and other Wisconsin voters will be disenfranchised.
The defense argues implementing do-overs would create chaos in administering the election. Over 100,000 mail-in ballots have already been cast in the primary election so far. Early voting starts today, and the primary is on August 11th.